All right, so happy new year. Um, we're going to continue from where we stopped. Last time we worked on these cards items, it's just the UI parts. There is no functionality there yet. So today we are going to work on these action buttons, and we'll be working on the UI along with the functionality because this thing is connected to the cards. Just like what I showed you last time. Whatever the item you click here is going to add it to the cart. And when it's added to the cart, whatever the number of quantity you put here, that's the same thing you are going to see. As you can see, it's showing 4x, which means the user picked 4 as the number of our quantity. So this is the price. Then the price multiplied by the quantity give you the final amount for that particular item that the user picked. And you can select multiple items when you want to sell. Just like item 7, you want to buy rice, you want to buy their rice, which is the mix. And again, you want to buy extra for beef, that's another item. You want to buy coke and so forth like that. So that's how these items is too, just that we are using a separate name for the product that we are selling there, but it's still the same kind of interface that you're going to see there. The difference is just the products that you're selling or the food that you're selling there. So what we need to do now is to add these two buttons, and again these two buttons are going to be conditioned there, like they're going to be conditionally rendered, because when you don't add anything to the cart, there's no need of you seeing this quantity. What you are going to see is this button of add to cart. But once you click this, because once you click this, it shows you this other UI when you can now reduce or increase the number of quantity. And whatever you are doing here, you are going to see it live on the cart. So we are going to be using our context to achieve this. Who is this one calling me? Sorry, boss. Yeah, so that's what we are going to do. So for this, in order for this thing to happen, don't forget all these things, they are separate components, they are not together, and they need to use the same data. So we are going to be using our context to share data that is going to be used across the app there. And one of the contexts we are going to be creating later on is just the app context, and inside it we are going to have different states inside that particular context. And one of our states that is going to be inside that context is going to be the cart, or which is whatever the item that the user pick, and it's going to be used inside this component and inside the cart component. But first, let's work on the UI for these two items here. So we need to work on this simple one first, which is this button to add to cart. And I'm going to be creating a component. I think we already have it already. So under the component, we have anything like that. No, we don't have it. And where are we going to be using it? We're going to be using it inside this product item, because that's where we put this action as a placeholder at that time. So now we need to replace it. But which one are we going to show? The one we are going to show is depending on whether that item is inside the cart or not. If it's inside the cart, the one we're going to show is the one with the quantity. And if it's not, then this is the one we're going to show. So we're going to start with this button by designing it first. Then we now add the logic to show this or this based on the variable that I'm going to create up here, like that. As you can see, I have this variable, which is this show border. And you know that the only time the border is going to show is when you've added item to the cart. So that's the only time that line will come out. But I'm going to change this variable from this show border to another thing that is making sense for what we want to do. Or we can create another variable here, and this one will be derived based on that. So we're going to see about that later on. But for now, let's work on the UI part. So here under the component, it's something we can put inside this file, but I'm going to create another file for it. And this one, we're going to call it add to cart button like this. So .jsx. And inside this, we're going to generate our components, REFCE. So I'm waiting for this thing. Yeah, so now it's back. So this one is not going to be div, it's going to be a button, because this is just a normal button. So this thing is not completing it for me. So the text that is here is not going to be this. It's going to be add to cart according to the text that we have from the UI. So we have this add to cart. But if you look at it, there's an icon there that we need to add to it. So inside this button, I'm going to add image to it. So I'm going to add the image, and this image, we're going to load it from our public. So let me check the name that is there. So under the images, so we have icon add to cart. So that's the text. So here we're going to add slash images, because everything that is inside public, you can just have access to it directly from the slash, and you get to it. So we have the icon, then add to cards like this, then .svg. So in case this thing is not showing or something going on with the link or something that happened, so we'll just say the icon like this. In case the image is not showing or something wrong with the link, so that's the text is going to show. I don't need this thing, so let me remove it. And on the screen now, we should, no, we're not going to have it because the component is not used yet. So let me save it, and here copy this button and go to this our product here. But instead of us display this action, what we want to do is this component I want to show. But don't forget, there's going to be two components here later on, the one that add quantity and the one that you used to add to the cart. But right now we're working on the one that adds to the cart. So save this one, go back to the screen. We should have our button that is not styled. So, and from there we apply the necessary stuff. As you can see, the button is not styled at all, and it is there for every one of them. So we need to style our button. So let me reduce this VS Code, reduce the terminal so that we can see what is going on. So here we have this button. We need to apply some style. And what are the style do we need to apply to our button? As you can see here, this is the style that we need to do. So this button is having this kind of like this black line, which is the border. Then the background is this lights or this grayish stuff. But I think we have all these colors set up in our Tailwind file. Let me see, because it has been long. All right, so we have this. It's still loading. Yeah. Are you loading? So we have this app green, app red. So we have these rows. I think it should be these rows. If not, I have to use my own color. So, but for now, we need to apply the class name on it. So the class name. So all our buttons should have this BG app rows that was 50 like this. So it's going to have a border radius. So I'm going to use rounded of this medium there, just to make sure that the thing is rounded. So we need to apply our padding. So on the X, the padding is going to be 5 if it's not too much. So I will see it. And on the Y, which is top and bottom, the padding is going to be 3. So we need to move that icon and the text side by side. So which means we need to display it as flex. Items center gap should be this around 1, which is 0.5 or around 0.25. Then save. We should have all this content on the screen. And again, too, shouldn't forget about the border that we have there, which is going to be something like this. App rows 900 a day. And once this thing is saved, then we should have the stuff on the screen. Yeah, so we have this item, but this thing is having a background. So where's the background coming from? It's coming from this container that I put there. So let me remove the BG so that don't get confused about where that color is coming from. So this one, let me save it, and we should have only the button. But there is a problem. So there is a problem here. There is a problem here. And what is the problem? The problem there is that this button is not taking all the text that we want. And why is it doing like that? It's because of the width or the padding that I applied. So that padding is really much. It's just taking a lot of space. And again, too, if you want, you can actually add. So this is it. As you can see, the padding on the left and the right is really much. This PS5 1.25, which is really much. So let me reduce it to something like this. So instead of 5, let's make it 4, and the top and the bottom should just be 2 because I want it to be proportional there like that. And again too, yeah, so we have what we are looking for, but the radius that I apply is really small. So instead of me doing like that, I can just use full, and this full is just 100% like this, or is even this 99999 whatever stuff they are using, which is going to make the edge to be curved like this. But don't forget, we need to apply the border so that the button can come out on top of that box there. So in order for us to have there in Tailwind, you just need to mention border. If you need to change the width of the border, you just put it in front of it based on the predefined value, or if it's not part of it, then you set it yourself, just like the way we normally do. But I'm going to go with their setting. I think by default they are using 1 pixels. When you just mention border, it's going to set the width of 1 pixels like this. Then if you want to change the color in front of the border like this, you mention the color that you want to use. For example, that our Apros 900, which is going to give you like the black line around the button. So let me save, and as you can see, we have that button, and I can see that the button is really down. So if I want, because now it's touching the title, so what we can do is to increase the space and at the same time move the button a little bit up. So let me check the original design, and as you can see, this thing actually have a lot of space in between the image and the title, and this thing is coming from this our product items here. So where do we space them? This is where we have it. We have this div, which is one that is holding all the image there, and at the same time we have this one, which is what is holding all the content. And at the top here, as you can see, we are using gap of 4. So I'm going to try gap of 5 and see if that spacing is okay. Yeah, 5 is really small, so let me use 8 so that we can have enough. Yeah, so I think this one is let me use 10. So 10 should be okay. So now we have enough space in between the title at the top and the button. And again, so this button should go up a little bit. And don't forget, the button is inside the container, so it's not the button that we are moving around. What we are actually moving is this particular one. So I use 90%. So instead of 90, let me change it to 80 so that it can go up more, because the more value you give, the more this thing is going to come out down. And I think this 82 is too much. So let me use 85 so that it's down a little bit. Yeah, I think this one is perfect. So now we have this, our button to add to cart. So the other button we need to have now, or it's not even button, is a combination of button and some other text. So we need to add this one, which looks like this one, but it's not button. The one that is actually button is this 2 icons here, because when you click on minus, it will reduce the number. When you click on plus, it will increase the number. So this one is going to be a container. Inside the container, we're going to have 2 buttons, one for this decrement and the other one for this increment. And the middle, we're going to have the span, where we're going to put the number of quantity that we have there like that. So we need to create this component. And this thing, we're going to be switching them based on whether the item is inside the cart. But that logic, we won't be handling for now. We're going to do the stuff first before we start putting the logic. So under our component again, I'm going to create another one, which is going to be quantity. So I'm going to call it quantity box like this .jsx. So quantity box. So we have RAFTE to generate the component for us. All right, so inside this quantity box, don't forget, I said we're going to have the button. The first button is the minus that we have on the left side. So this is going to be minus. I'm going to change it to the icon later on. Then the second one is going to be span, which is the quantity that we want. For example, right now, we'll just create a variable, a dummy variable, which is going to be count. Where is this count coming from? It's coming from our store later on, or from our cart. But for now, I will just use 4 like this. So again, after this button, we're going to have another button, which is the plus button that we need to have. So now I need to put all the image, but I think this thing is given to us already. So let me go up. So icon, yeah. So we have this. What was it? So for the first one, inside it, we are going to have the image. So the image, we have this icon decrement quantity. So images, then we have this icon decrement quantity, then SVG. So the same thing for this clause, we have the image, and this one is going to be icon increment quantity. So what's going on VS Code? All right, so this is going to be images, icon increment quantity SVG. So in case the image is not showing or I did not put the name correctly, this one should just be minus like this, and this one is going to show plus in place of the image in case it is not showing correctly. So I don't need this top item, so save everything once again, and then copy this, our component name, go inside where we need it, which is going to be this product item. So now I don't want to display this one, I want to show the other one. So I'm going to create a variable here that they know that, which is something I can use this show border. So I'm going to use that show border to handle this stuff. So here, if there is show border, so if there is show border, we know that we want to display quantity box, because anytime you have the border there, is the quantity box that is going to come aside. But if there is no border there, it means add to cart is the button that is going to show. So if it is not there, this is what we want to show here. And by default, the show border is false. So since it's false, we are not going to see this our quantity box. So let me save this code, go back to the screen. We are not going to see it at all because the show border right now is false, and we need to change it to true so that we can see that our box, and from there we'll be styling them. Yeah, as you can see, we have them, they are here already, but no background, so that's what everything is just jam-packed together there like that. So what do we want to do? We need to apply some styling here. So class name, again here too, we are going to use this so we need to use this bg app red like this. So we're going to use the rounded full because it's like the other one. So the px is going to be 4, that's what we use for that one, and py is going to be 2 like this. It's going to be flex. So items is going to be center because we want everything to be centered vertically, but we want to justify them. So we want to justify them. The negative button will be on the left, the other will be at the center, and the positive one, which is the increment, will be at the other end. So in order for us to have that, we need to use justify between. Once we justify them between, we should have what we are looking for. But in case there is no space, I actually want to force a gap of this around this 5. So to force this kind of a space in between them. So save, and we should have this button coming out. But the width is not what I want it to be. So because if you check it, the original design that we have, the width of the box are actually the same thing. The width of the box are actually the same thing. So a different way of solving this problem are there. One way of solving the problem is to make sure that the width of this container here is something here. Because right now, this did not have any width at all to it, but we can actually add the width into the box. For example, here, I can give you the width of maybe 80% like this, which means so let me give it a BG blue 500 like this. So BG blue 500, so save it, and we should have that container placed. As you can see, they are going to fill the container because we did not give you the width before, so it will not expand at all. But now that I've applied the width of 80%, which I think is really big there like that, so it's really big. So let me change it to this 60% of the container. So whatever the container is going to take that width. The button will take that width automatically there. So I don't need to be doing anything with the button. Or you can go to the respective button and you start applying the width on them, which is not advisable because you have to be changing two buttons, or you have to change two things: the quantity box and add to cart, which is not ideal. So I'll be doing it from the appearance, and it's going to apply it to both that button and this one. So if I change this one to false, we should see our button to add to cart. So we should see our button to add to cart. VS Code, don't slow down. So we should, we should see the stuff, but I want this button to cover up its parent. So let's give it a W full like this, so that make sure that it cover up whatever the container where it's being used. Yeah, so now it has covered up, but the content are not centered. So in order for us to move the content to center, we need to justify center, because take everything to the left side. So we just justify everything to the center, and our button should look perfect. And again, they are going to have the same width like the other container. And again, to be nice, if when it is over, we want the opacity to be maybe around this 75, just to show that you're actually doing something on the button, or your cursor is on the button, so that it shows that you are on the button there. Because right now, but I think this 75, this thing is not okay, because the background now has mixed up. So I can't use this. What I can do is to change the background. So currently I'm using BG50. So let me see, we have 100. Yeah, we actually have 100. So anytime it is over, the BG should be rose 100 like this. So I think this one makes sense than what I'm doing, because that background now is showing that we're doing something behind. So let me save this. What's wrong with this page here? So now, this one makes sense. So it's showing that you're actually on the button there like that. So let me go back to our product item. So here, let me bring this one back to true, so that we can see the other buttons. So we can see the quantity box. Yeah, so we need to style the other item that we have there. So what did this? Let me go back to the design. As you can see, the button actually have this circle, and the color is white. So we need to do something like that too. So going back to the quantity box, and again to this one, the color is white. So let me quickly style this one, because nothing much on it. So the text is going to be white like this. Text center, so that it's going to be center around the box, and we should have the color to be white. So now the button, these two buttons, are doing the same thing. So I'm going to select them at once and apply my style on them. So we are going to have the border just like the way we have it before, but I want the border to be white. So border is going to be white. So the rounded full, because I want this thing to be circle. And in order for you to make your box to be circle, you need to have the same height and width. So we're going to have I don't know which one, but let me try with this 10, or let me try with 8. Then the H2 should be 8, and this one should give us the rounded stuff. So I'm going to display it as a flex. So item center, justify center, so that I can move everything that is inside it to center. Again, to text center like this. Whatever that is inside that box or inside this button, which is the image, is going to move it to the center of the container there. Because if I don't do that, you might see that the image is at the top and it's not perfectly centered inside the button. Yeah, so we have it centered, but this thing is too big. So it's too big. So I'm going to reduce this 8 that I use. So we can reduce it to that. So let me use 6, and the width to the height too should be 6. So save, and we should have a reduced version of the button. So once you save, I think it is okay like this. So we have the button to increase and we have the button to decrease. And anytime it is over, because I want this thing to show that you're actually on top of it, anytime it is over, I want the opacity to be 85. 85 just means 0.5%. So that's what Tailwind is going to do behind the scene. As you can 0.85. So that's what it's going to do behind the scene. So anytime you're on top of the button, you are going to know that you're actually on top of this particular button. As you can see, or this 85 is even, let me use 70, which is 0.7. That's what Tailwind is going to convert this value to when it gets there, so that we can know that, yeah, we're actually on top of a particular stuff. And we don't want the user to be able to select this thing, because the user, like you can see, they can hover on it. I don't want the user to be able to select the text there. So how can we do that? We have a CSS property known as user select. So with that, you can control how the user is going to select the text. So here we can just say user select none. So when you say user select none, it means the user are not allowed to select that text. We just want them to see it. We don't want them to be able to select it correct, like the way I'm doing right now. I don't want the user to be able to select it. So, and this one is going to give us, Tailwind not, no, I'm not using the proper Tailwind select. It should be select none. I'm not using proper Tailwind words because it's not showing. It means that's not a valid Tailwind. But yeah, so this is what I want. User select none. And once this thing is saved now, you see that, can you see that selection is gone? So you cannot select it. If you try to select the text, it will not allow you. And that's what most of these blogs that you see online use on their side. Maybe you are searching for something online and you now go to that side, you want to copy it and you see that you cannot copy it. This is what they are using there. This is just a simple CSS value that you can use, not like all these other text. Now, as you can see, I can select it, but for this one, I can't, because I've already talked to the browser that users will not be able to select that text. So now we have this. The only time they can change this value is when they click on this plus minus on this increment there. But right now the thing is not working. It's not working at all. And again too, we don't want all of them like this to be showing, because only the one you click on add to cart, that's the only one it's going to show this thing for you. Any one of them that is inside the cart, that's when it will give you the option to increase or decrease the quantity. Any one of them that is not part of the cart, then there's no need for them to show this particular stuff. So now we need to add that logic. So what do we need to do? The first thing we need to do here is to keep tracking all the items that we have inside our cart. And inside each component, they can go to that store or they can go to the cart and ask, am I part of you? If I'm there, then show this button. But if I'm not there, then show the other one, which is add to cart button. So which means we need a state. We need a central store where we are going to save all our items. And wherever we save all these our items, any of the component can go there to have access to it. So just like the way we create hooks here under the app hooks here, we created hooks to simplify the process of us formatting the value that we have in our project. So we can create another hooks too that deal with cart operation. So under that hook, you are going to be having like functional like add to cart, remove from cart, or delete from cart, because these are the action we can perform on our cart. We have this add to cart, which is going to happen from the button here, and again we have this X, which is remove from cart. So we are going to create that hook there. But the store that we want to be operating with, it needs to be centralized. It needs to be somewhere that every component on the page or on this our app here can have access to it. And that's the reason why we need context, because context allows you to share value between different components that are not even inside each other. You know that the only time you can pass details down to any component is when this component is being used inside another component. So from this component now, if I want to pass this show border down to it, then I'll be able to do it because they are part of this component. So I can quickly pass the prop down to them and it's going to use the value. But now, what we want to use, see, look at this continue box and this add to cart button. They are not related to this cart and they want to use the same data. So what do we need to do? We need to put the state in the parent and we start passing everything down one by one from one component to another, because the In order for you to get to all of them, you need to come to the app. From the app, we send that to the product list. From the product list, again, we send that to the cart. Cart too will now send down to other component that we created, which is a waste of passing down data, because the component we want to pass it down to, like here now, is not using some of the item. So where it needs to be used is here. Again, too, when you click on this one, you see that it have its own other items, other component inside it. So we now start passing all these items down one by one, starting from the app all the way to like 10 or like 6 components before you get to where it's going to. That's bad, and that's what we call prompt drilling. So when you see that, okay, this your state that you want to use needs to be passed across your component, and some of these components, they are not necessarily inside each other. Even they are inside each other, where you need to pass it to before you get to that one, it needs to pass through maybe like 4 or 5 components before you get to the final one that actually need it. What you always do there is to use a state that manages all these things for you. So you have your state one side, and any component that need the data from that state, you can just go there and pick whatever they need there. You don't need to be passing it from the parent down to that component. And that's what we are going to do here by using the simple state that is given to us inside React. You don't need to install any other thing. If you want, you can use something like Restuarant. We have Redux and a lot of other state management library, but we want to use the simple one that we've talked about, which is the context. So with context, you define whatever stuff you want to share your app, and you wrap all your component or the major component that hold all the other one that need access to the value. So under this place here, I'm going to create an app context like this, JSX. So inside this app context, the first thing we need to do is to create context. And when you are done creating the context, you need to create a provider. So create a provider from the context. Then this provider is the one that is going to provide whatever details you want to share across your app. But the first thing you need to do is to create the context. And to create context, we are going to have const app context. So I'm going to give it the same name, which is going to be create context. So this create context is coming from React. So let's import it, and it's going to create a context for us. And out of that context, we can create a provider from it there, because once you create the context, React is going to give you the stuff that you need. So we need the context. So the next thing we need to do here, we need to export this, because we need to use it in our hooks. So I'm going to export it out. Or if you don't want to export it out, we can just create the hooks here, but we're going to export it out. So the next thing we need to do is to create a provider. So I'm going to export this one to const app provider. So app provider like this. So I'm calling it app provider. You can call it anything you want, but by convention, you always see that the provider is always at the end of it there. And that's why you see like the router provider, anything that is dealing with providing of data to other component, which is creating from the context, you only see this provider at the end of the name. Whatever that comes before the provider, you can call it anything you want, but by convention, always add the provider at the end. So that whoever wants to be using this thing or see it later on, already know what that thing is doing automatically based on the name that you have on it. So inside this provider now, whatever we return here, that's what all the component, which is what we are receiving as these children, is going to have access to like that. But not like that. What we need to do here is to call this our app context. Then on it, we have the provider. And whatever you supply to this value, every component, which is the children that we have here, are always going to have access to it like that. So here we've created our provider, and we just need to use it. And whatever you pass inside this value is always going to be available. For example, here I'm going to create this domain cart, and inside the cart, we're going to have this array of testing 1 to testing 2. This is not the way we're going to do it, but just to showcase that this thing is actually working. So we are sending out cards to any component that needs it, and they need to receive it by calling this context, and out of that context, they will get all the data that is coming from it. So let me complete this text. So save. So what do we need to do next? The next thing we need to do is to use this our provider, where all the component that needs it. And by convention, since this is our app provider, that means it's always going to be used across the app. So what you do is to wrap it in the main application that you have. So this main here, we're going to wrap everything inside this our app provider. So, and since every other thing are part of it, then they are always going to have access to the provider. So let me move it down. So now everything is wrapped under this provider. So whatever component you have under it, they are going to be sent down as children, and they will have access to the details under it. So which means product list, we have access to it, cards, we have access to it, and every other thing that is inside the card too. They can go to the provider and pick whatever they need from it based on the information you are sending from this value under the provider. So now that we've created our context, so we need to create under these hooks here too. I'm going to create another one, which is going to be this export comes use cards. So this use card is the one that is going to be responsible for adding to cards, removing item from cards, and giving us the total number of items that is inside the card, and a lot of other information that requires from the card implementation there. So here we're going to have this card, which is going to be this. So what do we need to do? We need to get the data out of the context, because the data you want to use is not just available for you like that directly. You need to have access to it through the context, because you can have different contexts in your application. So yeah, under this our app context here, I'm deriving the cards. Don't forget, under that stuff, I actually pass these cards. Whatever name you use to pass here, that same name you are going to use to have access to it. Or instead of you destructuring it like this, you can have access to everything directly out there. So we need to call this use context, which is the one that is going to extract the details that we need from that our context there. And from there, here I can quickly console log out the cards. So I'm going to console log out my cards like this. It's just going to be this card. And what do we want to return? We want to return our card because we need it later on where we want to use it. Another thing that we're going to be needing later on is going to be our function to add to cards. So we're going to have add to cards like this. So we're going to fill all this info later on. But for now, it's not doing anything. Again, too, we're going to have another one. So const remove from cards like this. So remove from cards, here, add to cards like this. Then we're going to feed them later on. But for now, these are the information we need from these hooks. So we need to export them out so that any component that needs access to all these things can use them. So remove from cards like this. So another thing we need to do later on is to update cards. So we need to update, because when you are dealing with increment or decrement, what you are doing here, you're actually updating something you've added to the card. So this is update. So this one we remove. The add button we add, then these two are going to be update. So you are updating a particular card. So this is going to be const update card item like this, which is going to be the ID. You need to give us the ID of the item. We're going to see all this in action later on. So these are the functionality that we need there. So, and what type of update are you doing? Are you incrementing the stuff or you decrementing the stuff? So you give us the type. If it is increment, we're going to increase the value by 1. If it is decrement, we're going to decrease the value that is there by 1. We're going to see all this, you're going to see all this logic later on. But for now, this is what we have, just for us to see that everything is working. So this one is complaining because I've not used all these variables, but no problem. When we start doing the implementation, everything is going to come together. So now, anywhere we need cards, we can just call this use card, and everything is going to work. So where do we need it? We need it under this card items. So we need it under this card items, because this is where we are dealing with, as you can see, this is where we are doing our dummy cards. So we're going to replace it later on, but for now, to const cards like this. So I'm going to rename this one because we can't use the same name for the two of them. It will not work. So let me just rename this one to cat 1, and from there we're going to use cards like this. So this use cards is going to give us the information. That means it will extract the card out of the context, and once it extracts it for us, again, we have access to other functionality because we are exporting a lot of things out of the use case. You can see we have the cat, we have add to cart, we have remove, and this one. But the only thing we need from this file is just the cat too. That's the benefit of this thing. You use whatever you need here, and every other component that needs something else, they are going to call the same hook, and they will extract what they need, and all of them will work together because they are picking the data from the same place. We have a central store where all our data will be saved, and any one of them can go there, update, and whatever component that is depending on it, they will get the update one instantly because the component is going to render once the thing see that you've made changes to it. So yeah, what do I want to do with this card right now? I'm not doing anything, but let me just move what I have here into this component so that I can, instead of having it here, so let me cut it out from here so that I can just show it from that component, and it's going to be shown from this card here because it's saying I've not used it. There's no problem, but because I've not used it, so it's showing the error like that. So now save it and go back to the page. So on our page now, if you go to the console, we should have, can you see, we have the cat which is having this testing one and this testing. And where is this value coming from? It's coming from our context. So whatever value you put inside this your provider, that's what it's going to use. So now if I want, I can just remove everything, then save, go back to the page. You see that the cat will get updated, and that's what is going to happen on the UI too. Once you remove it, you see that there is now 0. So here later on, it's going to show 0, and there is not going to be any item here. Like, oh, we're not even going to have anything like this because we have a UI when we don't have anything inside this box. So we are going to put all this in together in action. So now we have our cat, but it's something that we want to be able to update. So how do we update this stuff? So what we can do here is to create a state that hold the cat. So here we're going to have a cat and set cat like this. So, and which is going to be use state like this. So we are going to have it as this empty array. So instead of us having it like this, so what we just do is to send down the cat, and again set cat like this is going to be sent down. So the cat and the set cat, they are being sent down. So anybody that wants to use it under the context can just do whatever they want to do with it. So let me import the use state and again save and go back to the page. It's still going to be the same thing. The difference is just that we are now using our state, and since it's a state, we can update the value that is here or even add something there if it is not part of the item before. So now we have our cart. So what do we need to do right now? So under our product item, we need to return this one back to false, and we need to do some stuff based on whether this item is part of the cart or not, because every item that is being sent down here, we actually have access to the image, the name, the category, the price, and the ID. There is something that is missing here that I later added, because this ID is what we are going to be using later on to quickly check whether a particular item is inside the cart or not. So we are going to create another functionality for that too, because I don't want to be doing it everywhere. So I'm going to create this function, and what is job of this one? So const is item parts of our cart. And what is the job of this one? What it's going to do is to receive the ID and check if this item is part of it. If it is part, it will return true. If it's not part, then it will return false back to you. So that is the job of this one. So let me send it down too, because we are going to be needing this one inside that component. And that's what we are going to use to know whether this show border is true or is false. So let me console log out the ID so you see what we're actually getting back for each one of the products, because this ID is very important. That's how your information are being looked on any site that you're going with. There's always something that they use to uniquely identify user, because that thing is always unique. And since it's unique, no two user we have the same ID. Just like your matric number, you can use it to print out something because it is only to you. Like that matric is just for you only. And here too, all our products, they come with ID, and the ID is different. As you can see, each product have their own ID. Then based on this ID, we can know the particular item that the user click on, or the one that the user did not click on. So depending on the ID, because each one of the item here, they have the ID. So when we are saving the item to the cart, we are saving the details along with its ID. So anytime we now want to check whether that item is there or not, we just need to cross check its ID. Is there any item that is inside this state that have this particular ID? If it is there, then it means it will return true. But if it's not there, then it will return false. And that's how this saying works like that. So what do we need to do? What we need to do here inside this product item is to call that our use this index. So this one needs to have access. So here we need to use so this is going to be use cards. And what do we need from the use cards? We need that is item part of the card, because we need to check whether it is there. If it is there, the border will be true. If it is not there, then the border will not be true. Which means if the border is not true, we are going to get a button to add. But if the border is true, then that means we are going to get a quantity box, and every other thing will work the way it's supposed to be. So I'm going to remove this console. We don't need it. So what I actually need is this is cart parts. So and what do we need to send into it? So this one now, we just need to use it, and we need to pass the ID. So this one here will return true or false. So if it returns true, we know that this border will show. But if it did not return true, it will not do anything. But right now it is false, because this thing is returning undefined, or it's not even returning anything, which is undefined. And since it's undefined, undefined is false. So anytime you use undefined in JavaScript, it is false. And as you can see, it's showing the button. Because anytime you are not returning anything, it's going to be undefined. Any function that is not returning anything, it will return undefined. And when you pass undefined to Boolean, there like that, you see that it is false. And that means our show button here right now is false, because we've not implemented this functionality. And since it's not being implemented yet, it will return undefined. And since it's returning undefined, this thing will convert it to Boolean. And when it's converted to Boolean, as you can see, it will be false. And that's why we have this button. But now we need to implement that. We need to implement it. So what do we need to do inside this place? We're not doing anything much. What we just need to do is to return, because we want to check whether we can find an item that have this particular ID. And how do we do that? JavaScript make it easier for us. You know, when you're dealing with array, we talked about different methods that you can use on array. One of the methods of array is find. And what is find? Find is going to receive a function from you. Whatever function you pass into it, your job is either to return true or false. Any item that returns true, that's what is going to return back to you. The first one that you can find that return true, that's the one that is going to match. And if none of them return true, it means it can't find the item inside the array. And that's what we want to do here. So we are going to call our cat. We're going to use our find on it. So it's going to give us the kite item, which is the function that I'm receiving here. And what do I want to do? I want to find the kite ID that actually match the ID that I supply here. So whatever the ID that the user supply here, if you can find any cat that is inside this cat, or that is inside this place, or let me change it to item so that it's not getting we're not getting confused there. So let me change it to item. So inside this cat list, if you can find an item that have this particular ID matching what we supply to it, is going to return true, which is going to be it's going to return true. But here I want to convert it to Boolean, because I want it to return a Boolean for me. And in order for you to return a Boolean, one way of doing it is by passing this double exclamation mark here. What is that thing? It's just basic JavaScript that we talked about before. For example, here, if you have not 0, you know it to be true. No, 0 is false. Then not false is what? True. The same thing here now, if you not say not, so it will do it 2 times. The first one, so this is not 0, which is true. Then this one will not negate it, which is what I want. Or instead of doing it like that, you can just pass the stuff into Boolean. They are doing the same thing like that. So if I pass it into, can you see, they will do the same thing. Whether you use this double exclamation mark or you just use this Boolean directly, they are going to do the same. But I love this double exclamation mark because it's short there like that. And once we save, everything will be working, but we will still not have anything because none of these items are inside the cart. None of these items are inside the cart. But if you look at our cart right now, it is empty, which means none of these items are part of it. So how do we add? We need to click on this button. And once you click on this button, it needs to fire this function here. So you need to fire this function. So anytime you click on that button, this is the function it's going to call. And once you call the function, it's going to call our set cat here. So which is what we are sending down into this stuff. So where is this thing coming from? Don't forget, it's coming from our context. Whatever you send down here, that's what you are going to have access to. So we have access to the cat, and we have access to this set cat. So anytime you call this add to cart, we are going to receive the item that we want to put inside the cart. And what do we need to do? We just need to call this our set cart like this. So this set cart, we can receive whatever that is there before. So we have the previous, and whatever that is there before, we put this one at the top, and whatever that is there before, we put it back, because we don't want to replace everything that is there. So what am I doing here? This previous here is the item that you've already added inside your cart. So all those items I've added before, they are going to be at the end. The new item is going to be at the top. That's what I'm doing here. So what I'm doing here is that any item you add will always come to the top. If you want them to go down, it means we have to move this one to the end, which is bad, because the new item that you added, you always want to see them at the top, because you've already seen the other one already. So there's no need of you seeing them at the top. They should be going down. But the new item you're adding always going to show at the top, and that's what you're doing here. Add this one first, then everything that is there before, now move it to the end, and that's what this thing is doing. So anytime you call this function, you need to give us the item you want to save inside it, and that item, we put it inside the new array here and pass the previous one and put it back into the state there like that. And let me save it. So let me save it. And where are we going to do this? Where are we going to use it? So we need to use this, our use context now inside the button. See the way we are using them. We don't need to start sending anything down. All of them have access to that state. So what we just need to do here is to use this, our use cat again. And this is the advantage of you putting anything that is reusable across your app in a hook. So instead of you doing the same thing again and again from different components, put everything inside the hooks, and any component that need that functionality, we just go to the hook and pick whatever they need. So here we have this use cart, and inside the use cart, what do we need here? We need this add to cart like this. So add to cart. And what do we want to do? So on the button, so on click, anytime you click on this button, but there's a problem here. So there is a problem here. How do we know the item that we click on? So where we are using this cart, we need to pass it down, because look at it inside the product. That's where we are using this add to cart. So we need to pass the cart. We need to pass the item down into it. So the item that we want to put inside the state, we need to pass it down here. And what are the items that we want to pass? They are all these: image, name, category, price, and ID. The major thing I know that we are using there is just the name, the category, price, and ID. But for now, let's just send down everything. So we are passing down the image, the ID, the name, the price. So inside this add to button now is going to have access to everything. But I don't want to pass everything directly like this. So what I will just do is cut it out, and I will put everything together at the top so that it can be clearer. So const item here is going to be everything like this. So this is our item. I'm just combining everything that we have here together into one variable like this. So copy the stuff, and that item here, we pass it directly. So inside our button now, because don't forget, we are using this button not just for the first one or second one. It's being used for every one of them. So how do we know that is this button that we click on, or is this one that we click on, or is for this one that we click on? That's the reason why we need to send down the item. So for each one of them, it's going to send the correct item, and inside our button, we have access to the one that we actually click on. So here like this, anytime the button is clicked, what do we want to do? We just want to run this function. And what the function is going to do is going to call this add to cart. And what are you adding to cart? Is going to be this item. And where is the item coming from? Item is coming from the props that we send down to this button. So now we have this one. So what is it complaining about? Okay, everything is saved. So save, and this button is complete. We are done with this button. We are done with this button. But right now, we're not going to see anything on the UI because we are still using dummy data for here. But let's update this our cart so that we can see that we are actually adding this stuff. Let's update this count because based on the number of count, based on the length of this stuff, supposed to be changing this item. When there is no item, you know that this is not the UI we're supposed to show. We're supposed to show that empty, which is something that we have under our cart. So this is where we have it. Yeah, so here, as you can see that we have total. So and I use this dummy value for total right now. So let's plug them in because we have the data we need. So which is going to be coming from use cart like this. So use carts. So if I need this total somewhere else, so it's better I put it directly under this cart. So instead of me computing the stuff from here, so I'm going to delete this one. So I'm going to call it this total cart items like this. So which is going to, I don't have it yet, so we're going to add it. So this total count should just be this. So where is it coming from? It's coming from here. We've not defined it, so it will not work. So how do we get the total? It's simple. So our const total here is going to be cat, then the length of it. So whatever the length of this item, you know, it's array. On your array, you have the length. And that length is what is going to pass into this one. And once we pass into this one, then anybody that needs the total whatever stuff, we just call this one, and it's going to give us the total of items. So let me close all this thing that I don't need right now. Let me close all these other buttons so that I don't need to be moving around every time, anytime I need to. So I will just be opening the one I need at a particular time. So this context will come here. This app, I don't need it again. Yeah, so be easier to navigate. So now we have this total item. Now save. We say we should have 0. And once we have 0, can you see it's going to show this one? But now let me click on a button. If this thing is working, if our logic is working, once I click on any one of the button, you see that this one will disappear and it will now show the other item because now it will be seeing 1 here. And once you see 1, then there is no need of us display the empty. So click on this button, can you see is 1? And again too, can you see this box too showed? If I click on this one too, you see it said that we have 2 items in the cart, even though this stuff is not correct right now. But in our state, as you can see, we have 2. But this is what we need to render later on. So we are going to update this amala ewedu that we put there. This is just the dummy stuff. Again too, if I click on this one, you see that it will show 3 at the top because we have 3 items in the cart. And again, later on, we're going to add all the logic for all these buttons because this is not what's supposed to show. By default, it's supposed to show 1 because we only have 1 item again. So our state 2 is not correct yet. We're still going to tweak our state the way it is right now because we need to keep tracking of the quantity that you apply for. Right now, we did not track the quantity. The only thing we are tracking is just the category, the ID, the image, the price. But what was the quantity? We are not tracking it. So we need to add the quantity. So how do we add the quantity? It's simple. We have it under this add. Where we are adding this item, what we just need to do, we are not going to add the item directly like this. We are going to create a new one. So const cart item here is going to be whatever that is coming that you sent to us, and we're going to have the quantity. So the quantity by default is going to set to 1. And this update later on can change it to any value that it wants. So this cart item is what we want to put here because we need to keep tracking of the quantity, not just the item data. But right now, the only thing we are tracking is the category, the ID, the image, the name, and the price. But if you look at the UI, we need to keep tracking of the quantity. And again, too, the quantity will be used here. Whatever quantity that you have there is what you are going to get here, and the same thing you are going to display here. So which means you need to create another state to derive this quantity for us easily so that we can use it here and we can use it here too, like that. Yes. All right, so let me continue. All right, so as I was saying there, we need to track the quantity too, which is what we are doing here. So we're not just adding the item that is sent to us, we need to add the quantity because the quantity is needed at this side where we have this 4. This is not what is going to be there. It's the quantity that you have. And again, too, this 2x is not going to be 2x, it will be the quantity that we want like that. So what do we need to do? What we need to do right now is to firstly go inside this our stuff. So inside this our product item, so we need to send this item down to into the quantity box because we need it there. So inside the quantity box, or the only thing we just need inside this quantity box is the ID of the item we are dealing with. Then based on that ID, we are going to derive the quantity for it. So here I'm going to send down the ID. So I'm going to send down the item ID, which is going to be whatever the ID that is sent down to us. So inside this our quantity box, so let me open it. Yeah, so now we need to receive the ID, the item ID. So this item ID, this count that we set here is not going to be this. We're going to derive it from the state because we need to look for the item based on that ID. Then we now receive its quantity. So here I'm going to create another function here. So get cat item quantity like this. So the job of this one is to receive ID. Then based on the ID you send to it, it is going to return back to you the quantity. So how do we get it? It's just that same thing we do at the top. So we're going to find the item like this. So the item dot ID equals to the same ID. But right now we're not returning boolean like the way we did it here. We want to return the quantity that is there. But this thing might not be there. Maybe you supply wrong or something happened along. This thing will always be there, but assuming something goes wrong, so that's why I'm using this question mark. And what is this question mark? What this thing is doing is that it's checking whether this thing is defined or not. If it is defined, it's going to access quantity there. But if it is undefined, that means it cannot find any item that matches this ID, then it will not even get here. It will just return undefined. But we don't want to return undefined. What we want to return is just 0. So which means if you cannot find the item that have a particular quantity, just return 0 to whoever is calling this function there like that. So we enter the cart, we look for a particular item that matches the ID we supply to it. So if you can find it, retrieve the quantity, which is what we are setting here. If you look at it at the top here, this is where we are creating the quantity. So the quantity we are creating here, we are having access to it down here. But if it's not there, just return 0 back to whoever called this function like that. So that's what this thing is going to do. So let me place it here so that we can use it inside that place. Where do we need it? We need it inside this content, and that's what we're going to use to get the count. Instead of the count to be 4 like this, it's going to be whatever we pass it. So now we need to call our const. So let me paste it here, which is coming from use cards like this. And in front of the count, we are going to derive what we need from it, just like the way we did it for the other one. So we are going to call this one. Then in front of this, we call this get to cards quantity, and we pass the item ID. So this is the ID. So this is the hook. It's expecting the ID. Based on the ID we are supplying to it, it will find the item that matches the ID there. Then we are not just looking for everything. The only thing we need on that item is the quantity, which is what we are creating here. Anytime you add the item, anytime you add the item, it's always going to start the quantity by 1. But later on, we are going to deal with this update to increase the quantity or to reduce the quantity in there. But for now, we just want to see that this one is working. And once this thing is saved, again to here, save. And once everything is saved on the page, all those items should now have 1, 1. And the reason of this one are not having 1 is because they have been added before I add that particular stuff. So in order for this thing to work, let's reload it, because all those ones have been added before we add the quantity logic. So now if I click on add to cart, as you can see, it will be 1, because anytime you click on add to cart, as you can see, it will add quantity as part of the item there. And later on, we add a plus and minus to increase it. But for now, as you can see, it is 1. Again, too, if I click on this, it's going to be 1. And I can see we have 2 items in the cart, because these are the 2 items that are added. Every other thing are not added at all. So if I want to add this third one, I can click on it. You see that now we have 3 items in our cart. But right now, we are not displaying the correct item. Again, to the price that is here is not correct. We are going to complete all this one. But for now, let's replace all these dummy items that we have right now with the correct one. So inside our component, which is this cart list or cart item rather. So inside the cart item, as you can see, this is where we are computing all these dummy value. So we need to receive. First, we need to start from this one. So instead of us doing all this one whatever nonsense that we're doing here, we actually need to use the cat. So this thing is going to be the cat. So I'm going to delete this one. That's why I call it cat one, because it's not needed. So and again replace this one with cat. Then the cat that we receive, as you can see, we are sending it down. So which means each one of them is going to send down all the necessary information that we want to display on the screen. Everything will still be working. No, it's not working. What did I say? Okay, yeah, the key. The key is bad because I'm still using this thing. So let me pick their ID. So on each one of the cards, there's an ID there so that the key can be different, because there's no two items there that we have the same ID. So let me reload it again. Right now, we're not going to have any item in the cart, but once we click here, as you can you see that it only show one, because we only have one item there. If I click on the second one, you can see it is two, but it's still not using the correct data, but the list is correct. The list is correct, but the data there is not. So if I click on this item, it is now three, because we only have three items in the cart. The only thing we need to update now is the title, the quantity, the price, and we calculate the total price. So let's put all this one too inside our cart item. So here we need to receive our cart. So where is it coming from? Don't forget, we are sending it down here. So we are sending down the cart like this. So this cart now, what do we need on it? What do we have there on the cart? So if you look at it, on each one of the cards, we have the name, we have the price, and we have the quantity. These are the stuff we need. So the quantity is this, the price is this, but this one is not going to be calculated based on the price and the quantity. So let's put them together. So for the title, it's going to be cards, then dot name like this. But if there is no name, what do we want to show? This is just something that you do when you are working on a real project, because it's not every time the data that is coming back to you might actually send what you're expecting. Sometimes you might have a data point that is missing. So you should always take care of this thing that you know that the data point might miss. But this application right now, we know that no data point can miss. But because I'm used to building a production grade application, I always make sure that things are set down. I always work on both. What if this thing is not go successfully? That's what this thing is doing. So if there's nothing is going on, so this is what we want to show, not that the thing will just crash. You don't want the application to crash, just show this empty text or just say no name like this. So this is what I want to show when we know that this thing will not occur, but just to have it there. Again, we're going to have the cat then dot quantity, because we know that this thing is set. And if it's not there, the quantity is not there too, just set down to one, which I know is going to be there. So for the price, the same thing too. So cat then dot price. So how do we get the quantity? We've done that one already. Just multiply the quantity by price, and it's going to give us what we need. So save, and if everything is working successfully, we should have the correct name putting on the page. As you can see, we have the classic tiramisu, whatever stuff. So we have this one, we have this one, and we have the correct multiplication, because 1 times 6,000 whatever stuff will give you this. 1 times this will give you this one. So, and now we need to calculate the total. So how do we get the total? This is just a simple math. The total is going to be every item you have in the cart, multiply this one multiplied by this, plus this one multiplied by this, plus this one multiplied by this. That's what is going to give us the total that we have here. And how do we calculate that? It's simple too in JavaScript. There are different way of doing it in JavaScript. So just like the way we have find, we have another method on array there that I'm going to be explaining later on better there, which is known as reduce. So this reduce help you to take a list of items and combine all of them together to a single value. But that's what we want to do here. If you look at what we want to do, these are 3 items. So this 1 times this plus, this is wrong. So this 1 times this plus this 1 times this plus this 1 times this. Then everything together is going to give us a single value, which is this total. And reduce can help you to do this on array. I'm going to be explaining all this array method later on in another class after we are done with this project. But for now, I'm just going to quickly do the stuff. And what is it going to be there? So I'm not going to do it like this. What I'm just going to do, normally I don't want this to keep calculating the value every time. But should I just do it inside the file? So yeah, let's go there and do it for that place. But I don't think I'm using it in another place, right? Yeah, I think we're going to be using it in another place because yeah, it's being used in that. Look at it. It will be used here too. So it will be used here and it will be used on the model. So I don't want to calculate, I don't want to do the same thing again and again. So what I'm going to do here is to create a function. So constant get total amount like this. So this is the job. Or I might not even make this thing to be a function because what I want to do before is to create a derived state here, and I don't want that thing to keep calculating the stuff every time. But this is just a small project, so I'm going to follow that method. I don't want to create a function. So get total amount like this, or let's just say total amount in general. So total amount here. So how do we get the total amount? It's going to be the cart item then reduce. So what is reduce? Reduce is just like this find. So find, you can see you are receiving the item and it will find whatever you have there. It will return one item that it can find based on your condition. But what does reduce do? What reduce do is that reduce to will receive a function. And what is it going to receive? The function will return the current value from you. So we have the current value and no, this is the previous value. So this is going to be the previous data that you computed. Whatever data you computed from this, your reduce, this is what is going to, this is where it's going to save it to. Then this is going to be the current data. And here, whatever you return here is what is going to save as previous. But you know, when the thing is starting for the first time, when you want to do the calculation for the first time, what is it going to be use for that first time? Whatever you pass here is what is going to use for the first time. And as you can see, I'm passing 0 because when you want to start the calculation, there is no item before this one. So it means it's going to be 0 plus 1 times this. Then the calculation you have here, the result you have from here is what is going to be this your previous data. So when you're done with this one, you are going to add it to this one. The result that you have from this and this is what is going to be the next previous data and so forth like that. That's what reduce is doing. But I'm going to explain it more better when we are done with this project. I'm going to explain all those key array methods that you are going to be using day in, day out there like that. Again, too, this is not supposed to be computing the stuff every time like this, but we are dealing with a simple project and the data that we have is not that big, so we won't have any performance issue. But when you are working with the data like maybe thousands of products there like that you can add to carts, this can cause issue with the calculation. But for now, we are not going to have any problem. So what we want to do, this current data is whatever you have inside your array there. So current data for the first time is going to be this item and this box. So the next time it's rolling that stuff again, your current data will be this. The result you have from here is going to be the previous one. But the first time you are starting with this one, we don't have any previous data. That's why it's starting with this 0 here. So whatever you put there is your starting point before you start doing the calculation, before you start returning anything from here. And whatever you return from here, that's what is now going to use as your previous data for each one of the items you have in your array. So since we have the 3 items, the first time it will be 0 plus whatever the calculation will do with this one, the return value. So the calculation we now have here will be the previous data for this. The calculation we have here will be the previous data for this, and so forth like that, depending on the number of items you have here. And once it's done with everything, the final result is now what is going to return to this total item. So what do we want to return here? What we want to return is our current data. So your current data is the carts, each one of the items you have in your cart. And don't forget, on it we have the quantity, then multiply by this current. I'm calling it current data. You can call it anything you want like that, or I can just call it this item like that so that it will be clearer. So this is going to be item, quantity, then item, price like this. So the first time we want to do this calculation, what we are doing here is that with this stuff that we have, so because we need to add it to the previous one, so it's just a simple math. So what do we want to do? What we want to do here is that multiply all these things together, then add it to the previous data. So you know that I'm not putting in a bracket because it is clear. Multiplication will always happen first before the plus. So what is it going to do the first time? So I imagine this is our item. This is our item now. So the first time that thing is going to run, it will take this price multiplied by this quantity, which is going to be the same thing as this 5,500. So it's now going to add it to the previous data. But look at it. This is our first item. There is no previous data. Since there is no previous data, then it's going to use this 0 as the value of previous data. But when it's done with that first one, so that means now the next time we want to calculate for the second one, previous data will now be this 55, be 5,500, because that's the result that we got from the previous calculation. The previous calculation is going to be this 1 multiplied by 5,500, then plus the previous data. And that first time we don't have previous data, then it is 0. So it's still going to be the same value. So that value that we are getting here, which is going to be the 5,500, will now be the previous data for the next calculation. And what's the next calculation? Is this second item here. So when you want to do the second calculation, it will be using this 5,500. So by the time it's get there, it means the previous data here is 5,500. So what is the next item that we have on the list? The next item we have on the list is 6,010 naira multiplied by this, which is going to be 6,010 naira. But what is the previous value? The previous value that we got from that first item is this 55. So which means now when it's doing the second calculation, it will be 6,010 naira like this, then plus. So whatever you have got, whatever we got here is now what is going to be the previous data for the next calculation. And that's how reduce work are there. But I will say it better when we are dealing with this. So where do we want to use this stuff? We want to use it somewhere. So let me export it out so that it can be used. And where do we need it? Later on when we work on the model, we're going to be using it here. You don't need to do anything again. Just plug into it here. And again, too, inside our cart here, we need to use it because the value you have here is still the same thing you are going to have there. And where do we need it? So let me save it here. So let me copy it. If everything is working successfully, so inside that our this in there, so where is it? So which is going to be this cart order summary. So this is where we have it. As you can see, we have this total. So this total that I'm using 14,000 right now as the dummy value. So we need to receive it from our cart. So use carts like this. And all these things will get updated every time you add something to the list because they are connected. They are using the same data and it's the same store that they are connected to. So now, here, instead of having it like this, what I can do is just to place it in front of it like this. Or just eliminate this variable directly and just pass it inside instead of creating intermediary variable. So now, if everything is working correctly, we should have the calculation as you can see, 18,000. So let me reload everything again. So the first time you are going to add to the cart, we have 6,010 naira. So it's just one item as you can see. That's the same thing because it's 1 times 6,000, which is this. So now if I add the second item here, which is this 2,800, as you can see, what is happening here is 1 times this will give us this. Then to add these two values together, 2,800 plus 6,010 naira, that's when we are getting is 8,810 naira. If I add another one, as you can see, to keep updating the value because it's depending on what is going on in the cart. And once the cart gets updated, it will recalculate the new value. And that's the reason why it is derived value. So it's not a state, it is derived value. This is what we call derived value. So when you create a variable and it's based on another variable, the one you are creating here that is dependent on another one is what we call derived variable. Because when this one change, it will recalculate the value of this one. I don't need to start doing the setting myself. If you want to do it for a junior developer, you can go and create state to set the total amount. And anytime this one change, you now update it yourself. No. Since this one, anytime it change, this thing is going to get called again. We can derive the stuff directly from here. So I don't need to start changing this one myself. It will always recalculate this value anytime this one change. Even if it did not change, it's still recalculating the value, but because it's still the same thing, you will not see any changes. But once that it is changed, then it will recalculate the value automatically there like that. So now let me add another item. This is 21,510. But now we cannot remove any item from the cart. We have our cart, but we can't remove any item. So we need to be able to remove item from the cart. So we need to implement that. And then after that one, I think is there any other? Yeah, this quantity, well, I will see because I'm checking at the time. This is 1 hour 90 minutes already. All right, so let's see how fast we can be. All right, so now let's add the functionality to delete. The delete is just simple, there like that. So when you want to remove item from the cart, we need the ID, because that's what we're going to use to find the item you want to remove. And what do we need to do? Array have another method we can use to remove what we don't want from our list. So instead of you using find to return a particular item, you can actually use this filter here. And what is filter? What does filter do? Filter, what it do from the array is that it will only return all the items that matches your condition. It's just like find, but the difference between them is filter is returning all the items that matches the condition, while find is only returning the one that matches the condition, the first one that matches. You can have multiple items that matches your condition, but find will only return the first one it can find. But when you're talking of filter, it will return all of them. For example, here you have a list of scores and you want to see all the scores that are more than 50. You know, you can have 60 there, you can have 70, you can have 10. So with filter, it will return all of them that are more than 50. But when you're talking about find, the first one it can find here, if it is 60 that it finds first, that's the only 60 it will return. If it is 70 it finds first, that 70 is going to return. It will not return all of them. And that's what I'm trying to use here. I'm trying to return all the items that did not match the ID that we click on. So which means it will only return all the item that is not part of what we click on. So the one that we click on, it will not be returned. And it's not really updating the state directly. It's only returning array of the cart items that is not part of the one we click on. So you need to update the state to remove what we have, and that's what we are doing. Get whatever that is there before, filter out the one we don't need, then set it back so that we only now have the item that we did not click on. So the one that we click on, this one will remove it, filter will not return it. And since filter did not return it, it will get set back to the cart. And since that one has been removed, or whatever that is there before has been removed, then it's not going to show the stuff. So now we can use this our remove from cart. So let me copy it and go to where we need it. So where do we need it? We need it under our items. So cart item. So we need under the cart item. So let me scroll down. Where do we? Yeah. So this is the button. So let me receive it from this side. So const like this, which is going to be this one remove. And see advantage of these hooks, because I'm using it a lot and some of these items are going to be used in other places too. So I don't need to start defining again, calling my context directly from here and start setting everything again. No, I don't need to do that. So now where do we need it? We need it on this button. So anytime this button is clicked, we want to do something. Anytime the button is clicked, what do we want to do? We want to call that our remove from cart and we pass the ID of the cart. Don't forget we already have the cart and we can pick the ID from it. So on click, when it is clicked, I want to run a function, and inside this function I want to call this remove, and it's going to be this cart then dot ID. But this thing might not be available, but I know that it's going to be available for this project. It's always good that you make sure that you handle. If you want to do this in a real sense, you're supposed to check the ID whether it is there first. If it is there, you want to do it, but if not there, you want to show error. But for this project, the data we are working with, we know that they are always present. We are not calling any backend, and we know that the data is going to be present. But something can go wrong with the data. I can just go inside that data and update something or remove something, and that thing will be missing. It can cause error. But for now, we know we are not going to have any error here. So now we have on our item. Close this stuff. So watch this stuff. So I want to remove one of the items. Which one? Which one? So I want to remove this first one that we added. So once we remove it here, the quantity that is there should disappear because we connected this thing to the store. Because it's checking whether this thing is here. If it is here, it will show this quantity box. But if it's not there, it will remove the quantity box. But the next time we check, it will see that the ID is not part of the list again. Then it will not show. So if I click on this thing should disappear, and as you can see here too, it goes back to add to cart because it sees it that we've removed it from the list. Again, through this vanilla bean whatever stuff, this is it here. So if I click on it now to remove it, as you can see, it changes. Because now when the state gets updated, this one will see that it has changed. And since it has changed, whatever stuff we pass here, which is this thing that we're calculating at the top, where is it? Where is our this thing? So not item. Where are we doing this stuff? Okay, yeah, I have this my quantity whatever stuff. So where back up. There is it here. As you can see, we are calling this function. And you know that this function is checking our cat. So the job of that thing is to check the cat and find the item that matches that. But since that we remove it from the cat, so it will find it again, it will not see it. And since it's not seeing it, as you can see, it will return false. And since it return false, you know, this thing will go back to the button to add again. And once you click on it, as you can see, it will come up. You click, it will go. You click, it will go. You click, it will go. And as you can see, it's back to empty. Now if you click again, it will be back. Scroll down, click again, it will be back with the items that we want to add to the list. So now we've done a lot. We've add to but the only thing that I know that is left is just this quantity here like this. So which is something we are going to quickly add right now, because this is 1 hour 25 minutes, because I don't want the size to be large. So yeah, under this update cart, so we need to, what do we need? We need the ID. So the first thing we need to do is to get the item that we want to update. And that item that we want to update there, we need to find in the list and replace it. Array actually have a lot of methods. And that's why I normally explain this method in array first before jumping into using it, because it will really be useful a lot when you are dealing with array adding. So what do we want to do right now? What we want to do is that the object that we have here, we want to update something there. And once we update the stuff, we want to add it back to wherever it is. And there are different ways of updating this thing. We have a lot of methods that you can use and so forth like that. But we're just going to do the simple stuff. So what do we want to do here? What we want to do, so the first thing is to find the index of the item that matches the ID. So we need to find the index, not the item itself, the ID, because we need that ID to replace it with the stuff. Or we find the item, or we find the index. Again, too, we find the item too, like this. We need the item because we need it, because I actually want to replace the stuff. So we find the index. Of course, let me find the item. Then I'll find the index of the item there. Then after finding the stuff, what do we need to do? We update the quantity. So we are going to update the quantity based on the type, and we have two types. So we have increment and we have decrement. If it is decrement, we are going to reduce the stuff by 1. If it is increment, we are going to increase it by 1. And again, too, there is something we need to take care of here. When you are decreasing the stuff, if the thing enters 0, we need to remove it. But if it is 0, there is no need of leaving it there. But for now, let's deal with the simple one first. Then after we update the stuff, we are going to update the state, because you can't just change anything like that. If you see all the changes we have been doing, we are creating a new data based on what is there before. That's what we need to do here too. And that's the reason why we need the ID. So we need the ID, and after getting the ID, we just update the stuff like that. So the first thing I need to do here is to get the copy of the cart. So cart copies like this. Why do I need the copy? Because we don't want to modify what is inside. Object is crazy in JavaScript. You can just modify anything that is there before. So it's going to modify whatever that is there. But for now, don't let me even do it in this way first, because I don't want to do too big stuff. I want to do simple things. But later on, when we are dealing with the advanced stuff, you can come into the reason why you need to do it like that. Because if you don't do it in that way, you will not see the changes on the browser. Because the React, we only see that something has changed when they see that you are passing a new item. When you see that you just modify the object and you do not pass a new object, a new reference, it will not re-render the stuff, because it will be seeing it as the same thing. And since it's seeing it as the same thing, you will not see the changes on the browser. So those are the silly stuff that can happen in your application, and you now be wondering that I'm doing the changes now, why is it not going there? It's because you need to return a new set of items. As you see Peter here is returning a new set of items, and we now use that set of items to update what is there before. The same thing here too. We are creating a new array and we set it. You can't just pick what is there before and just update it directly like that. No. React will not say that it has changed. So, and it will not give it, the value has changed, but you will not see it on the browser, because we not see it as something that has changed. So we need to find the item. So const item is going to be this our cat, just like the way we used to do it. Find. So we have the, I'm going to call it I like this, or I'm going to call it this. Yeah, so let me just call it item because they are different variables. It's going to be item, then ID like this to be ID. So look for the item that matches this ID. So we are getting it from our store there. So after we get the stuff there, what do we want to do? We want to update the quantity. So here, after we update the quantity, we need to check whether the quantity is less than 1. If the quantity is less than 1, it means it's 0, so we remove it. But if the quantity is not less than 1, then we leave it the way it is. So what we need to do is that if item, because we don't know whether the item will be there or not, but you know, according to the program we're working, or according to the data we're working on now, we know that they are going to be there like that. But you don't trust this thing. You always take care of different things that can happen in your application. So the only time we want to do this thing is when it is here. So that's when we're going to find the index. So we're going to find the index, but before I find the index, I want to update the stuff first. So we're going to have the item. Don't forget on it, we have quantity. And this quantity, we need to check the type that you want to do. So if the type is the same thing, so the type is the same thing as an increment. So when you're dealing with increment, what do we want to do? We want to do item quantity like this, then plus 1. But if you are not dealing with increment, you want to do item like this, quantity. So the quantity that is there minus 1. So if the type that you send to us is increment, we want to increase the value by 1, whatever that is there before. As you can see, I'm picking what is there before, adding 1 to it. But if the type that you send to us is not increment, then we know that it is decrement you want to do, because there's only 2 buttons there. So you can't have any other choice. The 2 choices there, except it's your code, you make mistake with the typing. Again, too, if I know that I can make mistake with the typing, or I'm dealing with the real stuff, I'm going to check the 2 of them directly. I will check the type for increment, and I will check the type for decrement there like that, which is something we can actually do here to make this thing robust there. So if type is the same thing as increment, because we know that we cannot have the 2 at the same time. So if the type is increment, what do we want? What I did on this line is just for someone that is, advanced in this thing. But for basic stuff, you can actually separate them. This one line is what I want to replicate in this multiple line like this. So instead of us doing it in this way, which is a big stuff, so what I want to do right now is to use the traditional way of handling this stuff. This is just advanced, like the ES6 features, but for now, let's use this method. So if it is this S, so which means if it is not that, then that means check for decrement. So if you send decrement to us, which is something I did not check before, if you check the decrement for us like this, what do we want to do? What we want to do right now is to minus. So these are the 2 types of updates you can do. Either you increase the value or you decrease the value. So if you decrease the value, so if you send increment to us, we add plus 1. If you pass this thing to us, we minus 1. So and here like this. So what we want to do, so we need to check if the quantity is actually less than 1. If it is less than 1, you know that the user want to remove. We need to remove it from the cart. So what we need to do here, now we need to do that checking. So if item, we are going to see all this system in action. The quantity is less than 1. So it means you've gotten to 0. At this place, what we need to do is to remove the item. So, and how do we remove the item? Luckily for us, we've already created that functionality up here. We just need to call it here too. So what we just need to do is to call this remove item from cart, and we'll pass the ID. Then after that, we return. Or if you don't want to return, you can just say S like this. So what am I doing here? We check if the item is there. If it is there, that's the only time we want to do all this stuff here. So if it is there, we check if the type you send to us is increment. We increase the value by 1. So which means if it is 1 before, it will be 2. If it is 3 before, it will be 4. Again, here, if it is decrement you pass to us, if it is 20, then it's going to be 19. If it is 10, it's going to be 9. If it is 1, it's now going to be 0. And that's what we are checking here. Because if the value there before is 1 and you now click on decrement, it will change it to 0. And when it is 0, it means you don't want to buy the item. And since you don't want to buy the item, there is no need of us displaying it here, because the quantity we need is always going to start from 1 and above. And when you now click on this decrement here now, it will turn this 1 to 0. And when you turn it to 0, what we need to do is to remove it from the list, because 0 means when you multiply the quantity by this value, the final result is going to be 0, because anything multiplied by 0 will be 0. So why do we need to add it to the card? We remove it because they don't need it. That's what it means, and that's what I'm doing here. So if the quantity that we perform here, the changes that we perform here, if the value is less than 1, that means we remove it. But if it is not, then we update our state with the updated value. The changes that we make here, it will not show on the UI. We actually modify the data. We've modified the data, which is something I'm going to show to you. Let me even show it so that you can see the reason we need all this other stuff right now. So let me save it like this. This one, you look at if it will work, but React will not see that we've made changes to the item. In your state, it has changed, but React will not know that it has changed because it's still saying that the cart has not changed. We only modify the object. It did not see that the object has changed, but it's still seeing it as the same thing. We just modify the data that is there. So we need to return a new set of data so that you can see that this thing has changed like that. So let me go back to the screen. And now, okay, we've not really added all these methods. So let's go into those buttons. And where do we have the button? We have them under this quantity box. So I'm going to call this update like this. So this update here now that we have, we need to click on this button. So on click, when this button is clicked, this is the decrement here. When it is clicked, what do we want to do? We want to call this our function. So what is the ID? So we need to pass the item ID, and we need to pass this decrement. But this is the action we want to carry out when it is clicked. So that's the decrement on. And for the increment, it's going to be the same thing. The difference is just the type that we are passing. So we are passing the same ID, but instead of decrement, it's going to be increment like this. So save, and now we should have the button connected to the store. So once we click on this thing, it's going to update the quantity. And if this thing is working, if I click on it now, can you see the value is not changing? Even though we've updated the store like that. What do we have in our store? We have all these items. Can you see that the quantity has changed to 2 in the store? But in the UI, it's still showing 1. Why is it like that? It's because the React don't know that this quantity has changed. You need to tell React that this value that you're updating here, it has changed, or it's not the same thing again. React did not know, but your store has changed. Now, if you click it for now, then close this thing again, open it back, this thing will change to 3, or it will not even change to 3 because React is still saying 1 and so forth like that. So it will not give us what we want. If you click 0, can you see that one work? Because we remove. And you know that when you are dealing with remove, React actually know that you remove something, because in our remove method, we are updating the state. But when we are doing the increment, when it is not 0, we did not do anything here. The value has changed, but React did not know that the value has changed. So that's one of the problem of React here. So the state that we have, you must, when you are updating the state, you must return a new value. React must see that the value has changed. And the cat that we do here, we update one of its items. JavaScript sees it, but React did not pick it up that it has changed. And why is it like that? It's because some stuff that is going on behind the scene I'm going to be explaining when we get to the advanced part, because right now we don't really need them. So what we need to do is to fake to React that something has changed. And how do we fake to React that this thing has changed? What we need to do is to replace everything that is there before. One way of doing this thing, like after we've updated this stuff, what we can just do, or simple way of doing this thing, is just to set let me see this one. So we just need to set, which is still bad because we need to get what is there before. So what we need to do is to set the cat, then we get the whatever that is there before. Then on this previous one, we are going to replace the item that is there. And what did I want to use right now? On array, we have this method known as let me put this in here. So for example, here now I have array of all this value, So I have 5, I have 7, and I have 8. What did I want to do right now? What I want to do is to replace the value of this one here. So this index 2, like that. I want to change it to something else. So what we in normal JavaScript, if I want to change that second item, then what did I do? What I will just do is to pass the index. So what I will just do here is that the value at this index, the value at this index 1 is going to be something else. For example, 20, like this. So now if you call the x again, as you can see, the value has been updated. This one will work in normal JavaScript when you are dealing with JavaScript yourself. When you are dealing with React, in order for React to pick it up that the value has changed here, you need to return a new set of value in your state. If you don't return a new set of value, React will not see that your number 7 has changed to 20. And that's what happened here. That our quantity is changing to 2, but on the screen, it's not seeing it. Because React is still seeing this thing as the same thing. But in JavaScript, it has changed. But the object is this same thing. The reference of this object in the memory is still the same address. So your address is address 1. You've not packed out. You only change the color of the address. So the thing will not see it as a different house. It's still the same house. The only thing you just change is the color or the quantity of that house. So and that's what is happening there. But in order for this thing to see that it's a different stuff, you need to move it there and bring in a new set of house. Demolish the house that is there before and bring a new set of house. It doesn't care whether it's the same set of house you are building back, but it's not the same old stuff that is there. So another method you can use to change array here, we have something known as this splice. So what is splice? As you can see, you want to remove something or you want to add something in the array there. So for example here, at the index 1, I want to remove one item here and I want to replace it with something else. What did I want to replace it with? I want to replace it with 9, like this. So save, and now it's going to return this thing for me. And once I call the stuff, can you see what is now happening? The value has been replaced. So what am I doing with this splice? At index, starting from index 1, this is 0, 1. I want to remove one item. So which means this is the only value that I want to remove. Then that same value that I remove, I want to replace it with another set of value. And that's what I'm doing here, like that. So how do I do something like this? So I will just do const new cat like this. So new cat is going to be this. New cat is going to be whatever that is inside the cat before. Then after getting this one, what I just want to do here is that so finding the index, because you need the index. I don't know where it is right now. I know my list. This is 0, 1, and this is 2. But for the UI, there's no way you know that is the first button that the user click on the second one. So that's why we need to find the index of wherever it is, and that's what this one is there for. So we are finding the index of the item that matches the ID. Then once we find the stuff like this, so what we want to do, so this new card that we just created from the copy here, what we want to do, we want to splice it, and after splicing the stuff at that index, we want to remove one item and we want to replace it with this one. Looks like doing some magic here, but here now we just replace it back with a new card. What am I doing here? Get the index of the value that we got from here, like that. Then after getting the index, so we use this splice that I just used on the browser here. So I have these 3 leaks. I want to remove the second item and replace with another one. So another way of replacing the stuff is by using this splice. But the job of this splice, what it's going to do is that it can help you to add to the list, it can help you to remove, and it can help you to replace a particular item in your list. And that's what I'm doing here. From index 1, this is where you want to start deleting from, or this is where you want to start adding from, depending on what you pass at the second option. If you pass 0, it means you are not removing anything. If you pass 1, it means you want to remove one item starting from this index. If you pass 3 items, if you pass 3 here, it means you want to remove 3 items starting from this index. It will remove this, it will remove this, and remove the next one, and so forth like that, depending on that. But I only want to remove this one, and that's the reason why I'm passing this index, because the cat, I don't know where the item is. I don't know the index it is. It might be 1 the first time, it might not be the 1 the second time, or it might be the last one, because you can remove and re-add again. So there's no way you know the index, And that's what we did here. We find the index of wherever it is inside the cart, we get that index, then want to remove what is there before and replace it with this new update that we have, or that we have here. Or this one is said not necessary. We can just call our cart back and pass it directly here. But it's always good that you do it in this way. And now, once this thing is saved and everything is okay, anytime we update our state now, we should have the new value. This is the problem with array here. This is one of the problem with array here. They're like that. So, and once we click on this add to cart, increase the value. Can you see now? We have to increase. And as you can see, the price are getting updated, because now if I say 4, it will be 4 times 7,2, and 4 times 7,2 is 28,800. Then plus this one, then we get the final value. All of them will get, as you can see, we are getting this same update. So if I remove this thing, so it go back to 0, so which means we don't need it. And if I increase it, you can see it is 4. You click on reduce, it will go down. You click on increase, it will go up. And as you can see, the value is getting updated here, because all of them are connected to the same store. So we have 5 items here, we have 3 here, we have 7 here, and from there we have all of it. So we have 3 products that you want to buy, but the quantity are there. So for this one it is 5, for this one it is 7, for this one it is 3, and by the time you multiply everything together, the total price is going to be this 96,950 here. And once you click on this order confirm here, to bring out the model, which is what we're going to be working on in the next class here, like that. So this is where we stop, and in the next class we're going to continue from there by finishing up the project. So the next class is going to be we're going to work on this, and at the same time we deploy our application, and that's going to be all about this project. Then I will talk about the array, and then we move into another project again. But the array talk is not from next week, it's going to be upper next week. For that, once we are done with the method that you can use on the array to simplify the process for you, we work on another project. And I gave you an assignment, you didn't say anything about it, so not that I forgot to.
My 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 oga no vex, abeg, my work has been overwhelming. Even as I came back from work na I start na how I carry system. No vex, I go try run am do this week on training sha. I'm not going to work tomorrow and next tomorrow, so I
All
should
right,
do it tomorrow.
all right, I'm expecting the assignment.
So please, the video, please, can you go to me to upload this one too?
Yes,
Because I missed some part. Okay.
I'll upload the stuff,
Okay,
don't
thank
worry.
you very much. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, that'll be all.
And my regards to tell Shayo
Yes. All right, good night.
Arana. Good night, boss. Thanks very much.